Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we'll provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at headlines first. Balochistan escalates fight for autonomy as Pakistan faces rising resistance. Radicalization deepens in POJK as PM advocates extremist ideologies. And India condemns Pakistan's deadly airstrikes in Afghanistan, calls for accountability. Pakistan continues to face the wrath of its own systematic failures and oppressive policies in Balochistan. The region, which has long suffered under Islamabad's heavy-handed rule, has now become a battleground where the Baloch Liberation Army escalates its fight for independence. A recent attack near Turbat underscores the deepening crisis, with questions mounting over Pakistan's ability to address the region's grievances or manage its burgeoning dependence on China. A report. Balochistan's decade-long insurgency has claimed yet another grim chapter. A devastating suicide attack near Turbat, carried out by the Baloch Liberation Army's Fidai Unit Majid Brigade, left 47 Pakistani security personnel dead and over 30 others injured. According to the BLA, the blast completely destroyed one bus, partially disabled others, and demolished a military vehicle. The convoy, comprising 13 vehicles, including 5 buses and 7 military vehicles, was en route to the Frontier Corps headquarters in Turbat when the explosion struck at approximately 5:45 p.m. local time.
The Baloch Liberation Army's intelligence wing Zirab has provided the organization with this information, and then the Baloch Liberation Army's most lethal unit, the Majid Brigade, the self-sacrificing unit, carried out this lethal attack, I would say, on the Pakistani military. And one thing to be mentioned here, that the way the attack was carried out, the way the Baloch Liberation Army initiated its whole plan, from its intelligence to executing the attack to achieving its target, it seems like that was a major intelligence failure on the side of the Pakistani state, because they weren't aware that the Baloch Liberation Army is going to attack this convoy, which is in their mind was very secure, were very tight, that no one could come close to it or no one could target it.
The motive of our attack was very clear.
The Baloch Liberation Army claimed responsibility, calling the attack a response to Islamabad's oppressive policies. The group has increasingly turned to such high-profile operations, highlighting its ability to strike at the heart of Pakistan's security apparatus.
The recent attack by the Baloch Liberation Army, I believe it sends a very clear message to the Pakistani state that no matter how harsh your policies are against the Baloch people, no matter how much you're going to suppress the Baloch masses, no matter how many people you're going to put in your torture cells, and no matter how many people you're going to kill to justify your occupation and suppression, but the Baloch people will always fight back. They will always demand their just right to be free, because Balochistan is their motherland, and they will never allow anyone, be it Pakistan or its allies in shape of China or any other international power that is supporting Pakistan.
Balochistan's insurgency is deeply rooted in historical grievances. Despite being rich in natural resources such as gas, coal and minerals, the province remains one of Pakistan's poorest. Over 70% of its population lives in poverty, with basic amenities like education and healthcare largely absent. The Baloch people have long accused Islamabad of exploiting their land while depriving them of its benefits. Enforced disappearances, abductions, and brutal crackdowns on dissent have only fueled resentment. Activists, students, and intellectuals are routinely targeted by Pakistan's security forces, deepening the mistrust between the region and the federal government.
They have been silenced, they have been suppressed, they have been, forcefully, taken away from their land, they have been forced to migrate. So all those people, everyone in Balochistan, when they see that the defenders of the Baloch land are still there, they're still fighting for the freedom of Balochistan, and not only fighting, but they are growing a strength and they are becoming stronger on a daily basis, and this gives a very a bright hope to the people of Balochistan. And that is the reason that the Baloch Liberation Army is succeeding.
The Baloch Liberation Army traces its roots back to the 1970s, when leftist guerrilla groups began demanding autonomy for Balochistan. Over the years, the insurgency has evolved into a more organized resistance targeting both Pakistani and Chinese interests. The group opposes Beijing's economic footprint in the region, particularly projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. They argue that these projects exploit Balochistan's resources while providing no tangible benefits to its people. The insurgency has gained significant momentum in recent years, with attacks becoming increasingly sophisticated and deadly.
In the last 8 to 9 years, the Baloch movement, the Baloch liberation struggle, the Balochistan war has changed its dynamic, has changed its shape. So in past, the Baloch armed organization would have attacked the Pakistani army, would have attacked a Pakistani military outpost or checkpost from far distance, and then they would just try to protect themselves with using the guerrilla war tactics. But in the last 5 to 7 years, there is a huge shift where the Baloch freedom fighters are entering the military outpost. They are capturing the military outpost, they are capturing the whole towns, they're capturing whole cities, they're capturing most of the highways. They are using the same tactics which Pakistani army use against the Baloch civilians. They are using it against the Pakistani military now.
The lack of meaningful dialogue and Islamabad's reliance on military suppression have pushed the region further into chaos. The absence of a political solution has left many Baloch people disillusioned, with armed resistance emerging as the only viable option for autonomy or independence. Pakistan's systematic failures and reliance on extremist ideologies are now manifesting dangerously in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The region, already plagued by years of neglect and unrest, is witnessing a disturbing escalation as its leadership openly endorses radicalization. On January 5th, POJK Prime Minister Chaudhry Anwarul Haq called for the revival of jihadi culture, sparking outrage and fears of escalating violence. Critics see this as a desperate move to deflect from governance failures, raising serious concerns for regional and global stability. The growing radicalization in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir has reached alarming levels, with its Prime Minister Chaudhry Anwar-ul Haq openly advocating for the promotion of jihadi culture. The controversial statement came during POJK's so-called Right to Self-Determination Day on January 5th. Chaudhry Anwarul Haq declared his government's intent to facilitate and revive a jihadi culture in the region. This was followed by a provocative speech by Ghazi Shehzad, a pro-independence militant from POJK, who called on the people to arm themselves and take to the streets in the name of jihad.
कि अगर वज़ीर-ए-आज़म साहब ने ये बात की है चौधरी अनवर हक साहब ने कि अब हम आज़ाद कश्मीर के अंदर जिहाद है और जिहादी कल्चर को आम करेंगे और जिहाद करवाएंगे.
Since the Prime Minister of Pakistani occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Chaudhry Anwarul Haq has made a public speech in which he has said that his government will facilitate jihadi culture in POK, and he has raised slogans Al-Jihad, Al-Jihad. All the terrorist organizations which claim to be Islamic, followers of Islam and jihad and all that, they have come out of their hideouts and they are now roaming the streets of Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir. They are recruiting, they are raising funds, they have got weapons, and they have got even rocket launchers, and they have got mortars. Where did they get this from? Obviously, this has been supplied to them through the front organizations of Pakistan Army.
This rhetoric has sparked widespread outrage among human rights activists and progressive voices who view it as a calculated move to divert attention from the POJK government's failures. Critics argue that this call for violence is not only reckless but also a desperate attempt to regain political relevance amidst growing public dissent.
The offer made by the Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir Prime Minister Chaudhry Anwarul Haq to jihadi organizations that the government of POJK will facilitate and revive the jihadi culture in POJK is testimony to the worst kind of political opportunism on his part. He has completely lost his popularity after the civil disobedience movement that was launched by the Joint Awami Action Committee. He was forced and pushed to the wall to release political prisoners in Pakistani occupied Jammu Kashmir. And 5 to 6 general strikes over a period of 2 years he had to face, which has decreased not only his own popularity and the popularity of his government, but also the popularity of the slogan Kashmir Banega Pakistan. And Pakistan is hated in POJK today so much that you cannot raise Pakistani flag voluntarily in any part of POJK.
The promotion of jihad by POJK's leadership is seen as a dangerous shift in strategy. By stoking jihadi rhetoric, the POJK government risks targeting progressives, liberals, and secular nationalist elements in the region. Human rights activist Dr. Amjad Ayub Mirza highlights that jihadi groups have already infiltrated multiple online platforms, including WhatsApp groups within the Kashmiri diaspora, where they are actively monitoring and threatening those who hold pro-Indian or secular views.
The jihadi element has already infiltrated into various WhatsApp groups, the Kashmiri diaspora WhatsApp groups, and they monitor them. And then they threaten secular-minded nationalists or pro-Indian stance, those who take pro-Indian stance. They threaten them, they demean them. They are being empowered by this POJK Prime Minister. This is the first time in the history of POJK when a sitting Prime Minister has said that the government will facilitate jihadi culture. The government will facilitate jihad in POJK. And the result was that the same evening, jihadi groups Jihad Council and other Lashkar and all those Mujahid, they all were on the streets of Muzaffarabad and they were celebrating with automatic weapons.
The extremist rhetoric has also drawn sharp criticism from international voices. Sajid Hussain, leader of the UK-based United Kashmir People's National Party, condemned the call for jihad as a troubling endorsement of terrorism under the guise of addressing the Kashmir issue.
This rhetoric, steeped in extremism, is a direct incitement to violence, posing a significant threat to regional and global peace. Such declarations, made under the guise of advancing the Kashmir issue, represent a dangerous departure from diplomatic norms and a blatant endorsement of terrorism in the name of Islam.
Pakistan's long-standing policy of using extremist groups as proxies has now backfired, with its own leaders openly promoting radicalization. This alarming trend in POJK not only threatens regional stability but also exposes Pakistan's duplicity on global platforms. The world must take note of the growing radicalization in Pakistan and its occupied territories. The international community must hold Islamabad accountable for using extremist rhetoric and terrorism as tools for political gain, which not only destabilizes South Asia but also poses a threat to global peace. Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan is reeling under severe power outages, plunging residents into darkness during freezing winters. Protests erupted in Hunza, blocking the vital Karakoram highway for days, as frustrated locals demanded an end to decades of neglect and mismanagement. Despite government assurances, skepticism looms large, highlighting Pakistan's chronic failure to address POJB's basic needs, even as it touts the region's strategic importance to the China-Pakistan economic corridor.
In Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, crippling power outages have become a daily reality, with residents enduring up to 23 hours of load shedding. The harsh winter months have exacerbated the situation, leaving thousands struggling to heat their homes, cook meals, and access basic amenities. The lack of reliable electricity is a long-standing issue in POJB, where outdated infrastructure and limited integration with Pakistan's national grid have left the region unable to meet growing energy demands. Chronic underdevelopment, compounded by insufficient financial investment from federal and regional authorities, has only worsened the crisis. Frustrated by years of neglect, residents of Hunza district recently staged a protest, blocking the Karakoram highway for 5 consecutive days. Demonstrators accused the Gilgit administration of deliberately depriving the region of its rightful share of electricity, plunging local communities into darkness and disrupting daily life.
जो हुंजा में हिसाब शिकन लोड शेडिंग है और जिसकी वजह से 24 घंटे में 30 से 40 मिनट बिजली हुंजा में आ रही है। रात को -15 से ज़्यादा सर्दी है। तुलबा को इंटरनेट में असर नहीं, बिजली न होने की वजह से लाइटिंग का इशू है, हीटिंग का इशू है, कुकिंग का इशू है।
The protest also brought the critical Karakoram highway, a vital trade route connecting Pakistan with China, to a standstill. Containers carrying goods were stranded on both sides of the road, causing severe economic repercussions. While the protests have now ended after the government promised to address the demands of the residents, locals remain skeptical. Many view these assurances as hollow and temporary, designed only to diffuse the immediate unrest without offering any long-term solutions.
तकरीबन 80,000 से ज़ायद ज़िला हुंजा की आबादी इस वक्त बिजली के एक बल्ब के जलने के लिए तरस रही है। इंतहाई हसास, इंतहाई दिफाई एतबार से, स्ट्रेटजिक एतबार से
इंतहाई अहमियत का हामिल ज़िला हुंजा, जहाँ पे सी पैक का गेट, चाइना के साथ पाकिस्तान की कनेक्टिविटी का रास्ता और इंतहाई हसास बॉर्डर के ये कम्युनिटी इस वक्त दिन में 1 घंटे 20 मिनट की बिजली के लिए तरस रहे हैं। अवाम गुज़श्ता 4 दिनों से सड़कों पे।
The ongoing power crisis highlights Pakistan's inability to effectively manage its occupied territories. Despite Hunza's strategic importance as a gateway to the China-Pakistan economic corridor and its status as a major tourist destination, the region remains chronically underdeveloped. The crisis comes just weeks after Pakistan and China announced year-round operations of the Khunjarab Pass, a key CPEC route. However, the unrest raises serious doubts about Pakistan's capacity to uphold its commitments under the multi-billion-dollar project. While Beijing has poured over $25 billion into CPEC, the situation in Hunza underscores the stark reality: Pakistan's mismanagement and neglect of its occupied territories threaten to derail one of its most critical economic partnerships. The protests in Hunza may have ended, but the region's power crisis and systematic marginalization remains unresolved. As Pakistan continues to prioritize short-term appeasements over meaningful solutions, the people of POJB are left grappling with the bitter reality of neglect and deprivation.
India has strongly condemned Pakistan's recent airstrikes in Afghanistan, which resulted in significant civilian casualties, including women and children. The airstrikes have further strained Pakistan's ties with the Afghan Taliban and drawn sharp criticism from the international community. Meanwhile, India has reiterated its commitment to humanitarian aid and development in Afghanistan during a high-level meeting in Dubai. Here's more to the story.
Last month, Pakistan launched airstrikes in Afghanistan claiming to target hideouts of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Pakistani officials assert that senior TTP leaders were killed, but the Afghan Taliban has accused Islamabad of indiscriminately bombing civilian areas. Reports suggest dozens of innocent lives were lost, including women and children, sparking outrage across the region. India's Ministry of External Affairs condemned the airstrikes in a strong statement, labeling them a gross violation of human rights. MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal expressed India's concern over the loss of precious lives, emphasizing that targeting civilians under the guise of counter-terrorism is unacceptable. Pakistan's actions are increasingly being seen as a deflection of its internal failures. Its inability to curb TTP's growing insurgency, despite decades of fostering extremist groups for strategic gains, has backfired. The situation has also soured relations with the Afghan Taliban, which accuses Islamabad of undermining Afghan sovereignty.
Pakistan now says that it is fighting the terror groups. It has always been involved in creating terror groups in Afghanistan and against India for the last many years. And now it is crying foul. But therefore, it is understood clearly that Pakistan, which also faced this problem from TTP for quite some time, and it has itself led, in my view, the Talibanization of Pakistan as a matter of choices, because it was supporting all kinds of groups against India and even against the Afghan regime. So India definitely does not like the idea of killing civilians, women and children.
Amidst the turmoil, India continues to strengthen its engagement with Afghanistan. A high-level meeting between India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri and Afghanistan's acting Foreign Minister Maulvi Amir Khan Muttaqi took place in Dubai. The discussions focused on enhancing cooperation in sectors like humanitarian aid, trade, and regional security.
And India has been providing the humanitarian assistance and developing ties with Afghanistan without according the full diplomatic recognition to them. Our embassy is working there, and I think that this is quite possible that relationship will continue. Today, as you know, yesterday our foreign secretary met with their acting foreign minister in Dubai, and that meeting was important in the sense is that there have been feelers and approaches from the government in Afghanistan for completing various Indian projects. You know that India invested about $3 billion for the sake of development of the country, and those projects are still continuing.
India has pledged further aid to Afghanistan, focusing on critical areas such as healthcare, medicine supplies, and refugee rehabilitation. Over the years, New Delhi has dispatched substantial humanitarian shipments, showcasing its steadfast commitment to the welfare of the Afghan people and the stability of the region.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.